So, we found out that after the decimal point comes our tenths and our hundredths columns. Okay, so these are both less than 1. Okay, so we need these, and the numbers that come after the decimal point, they're smaller than 1. Now if we zoom in on this area here, we're going to zoom right in so we can only see the ones, the tenths and the hundredths. I'm going to just talk very quickly about what these two mean. Okay, now we've heard of tenths before. We heard of tenths when we were doing fractions. I wonder if you can remember what a tenth was. Rack your brains. As a fraction, what did a tenth look like? Now, as a fraction, a tenth had a 1 as the numerator and a 10 as the denominator. We were separating 1 up into 10 equal parts. And that's exactly the same when it comes to decimals, because we converted it into decimals before. It's exactly the same. Let's jog our brains. So, if we had 1/10 as a decimal, we know it's not 1 whole, so that would be 0. And it's the same there. And we need 10 of these to make up 1 whole. So if I were to say 2/10, and I had my 2 there, that would have been the same as if I would have written as a fraction 2/10. Okay, so that first one, and that's going to go all the way up until we were to have, let's imagine it's not a real fraction, this one, but if we had 10/10, we'd say that's a whole. We don't need to write it as a fraction, and that's exactly the same here. That's when the ones column would turn into a 1. Okay, so this area is called the tenths column because we're breaking it up into 10 equal parts, just like with a fraction. Now I'm wondering if you can guess what's going to happen with the hundredths column. How many equal parts are we breaking the hundredths column up into? I'm pretty sure you will have guessed if that was the tenths column and we're breaking it up into 10 equal parts, the hundredths column, we're breaking it up into 100 equal parts. So this is even smaller. We need 10 tenths to make a 1, but we need 100 hundredths to make a 1. So they're even smaller. So if I were to write down the number 6 wholes, 0.25, make sure remember that's where our decimal point is, 6.25, how many tenths have I got? How many hundredths have I got? So we've got, in our tenths column, we've got 2 tenths. And we've got 5 hundredths. Okay? So that would be the same as if I wrote 2 tens there. And if we were looking at our hundredths, how many hundredths, it would be the same as if I did a fraction and wrote 5 hundredths there. See, they're very linked in, decimals and fractions, which is great for us and it makes it way easier to understand. So, let's have another number. Let's imagine I've written down, how many tenths have I got? How many hundredths have I got? So the number is 8.12. In my tenths column, I have got 1, I've got 1/10, and I've got 2 hundredths. Really, this is just like using normal place value here, but it's flipped over and going the other way. Before we move on, I'll leave you with this. If that's the tenths column, that's the hundredth column. If we had 3 numbers after our decimal point, what do you think the column would be called? Tenths? Hundredths? What would come next? I wonder.